So welcome back to the Rigby SCI 2025 booth, here for the Campfire Podcast. I'm sat with a great customer and I'm not quite sure how I should describe you. Man who adopted me.
You called me your surrogate father.
Surrogate father, Merle Sampson, who took me under his wing and adopted me right at the beginning of the Rigby journey. You've got me in quite a bit of trouble over the years and in quite a few awesome situations as well. Merle,
I was told not to talk about those.
we can't talk about those, not yet, but it's long overdue getting you on the podcast because you've been such a massive part of the Rigby journey, of my journey with Rigby's. You've been really supportive from the origin days where I turned up with basically fresh air and some borrowed guns, and you
Remember that day?
Yeah, put some orders on the table for us, and so yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Can't help but look at the buffalo behind you, the one you shot in Uganda with the rifle we'll talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so fun. I've completely forgot that we had that here.
Right over your shoulder.
Yeah, so just you won't be able to see it on camera. Maybe you can just scoot over. This is the first buffalo I ever shot in Uganda with Merle, very old. Kevin Robertson actually aged it at 14 years old with the teeth and at the show here, which was amazing. And I don't know if you can see, there's a huge hole in the head, which is not from shooting the buffalo. It's actually just a wound that was there. And when we shot it, you could put a stick about 6 inches down into the head.
That was a very, very old Dogger and that was in the Kiboka National Park in northeastern Uganda. The former dictator and brutal man Idi Amin had a hunting camp probably 2 miles from where you shot that.
Yeah.
And the game there was incredible. Churchill's Pearl of Africa.
Yeah, it's an amazing place.
We enjoyed that. That was our first safari together.
It was our first safari together. It was my first buffalo. You always say when I shot it, my first buffalo. I was just so over.
You repeated yourself about 5 times.
Yeah, and another 10 on the way back to camp. And it was an amazing adventure. We've had so many amazing adventures, but the shooting the buffalo, almost getting killed in the jungles of West Uganda.
Yeah,
I think the absolute low point of that safari, though, was that aeroplane. So Merle's a pilot, and he's flown in all these little planes.
It was a Cessna 206.
Held together with gaffer tape.
Quite vintage.
Yeah, quite vintage. Held together with gaffer tape with a. What's that saying? There's bold pilots and old pilots, but there's no old bold pilots.
That's exactly
and then there was
it. Yeah.
then there was this guy who was pretty unusual. And as we were going along, nothing worked in this plane. It was hot, and the turbulence, it was so awful. And every time it would just go bang.
We hit the air pockets.
Yeah, the pilot would lean forward and he'd tap the dashboard and say, "Good girl, we're nearly there, we're nearly there."
He said, "Marc, don't worry. If some need be, I can take over from the right seat here."
Yeah, but when we landed on that
I have a 206.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I got out of the plane in the grass airstrip there and kissed the floor and vowed never to get into a small plane again. That was
When we left there, we flew in a Cessna Caravan, a Cessna 208, which is a $3 million turboprop jet airplane.
Yeah, that was a bit more comfortable.
More comfortable and faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember you were very kind because we were meant to take that other plane back, and I said, "No, I'll do anything at all. Just please don't let me go on that plane. Make me go on that plane again."
Well,
So.
we met Adam Smith was coming there to hunt, and I said, "My God, I meet you all over." The previous year, I ran into him in Istanbul, and he was heading off to Poland to shoot forest buffalo or something like that. So he gets off the plane, we get on, and we're ending our hunt, and he was doing something there. But yeah, that was first of 2 great adventures.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other one in Namibia, hunting elephants and
Caprivi.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely amazing. And yeah, no, you've always been so kind to take me on these adventures and share those experiences. And yeah, we've had a lot of fun. So before
you can tell them about the rifle you used in Namibia.
Yeah. So both the safaris we did, we used the first 416.
Yep.
London best that we did, which this is a quick backstory there. Merle, you always, whenever I introduce you to people, you say that I'm Merle Sampson. Marc Newton shamed me into 6 Rigby's, or I can't remember how many.
That's our private joke. You didn't shame me into anything.
But the first one was a 416. The company had just come back, and it was one of the first London bests that we had there. And I looked through the book, and interestingly, the first ever 416 Rigby ordered from the company was Sir Audrey Wall Sampson.
Colonel.
I beg your pardon, Colonel Sir Audrey Wall Sampson.
Boer War.
Correct. And I reached out to Merle and said, I don't think there's a family connection, but Sampson, maybe you should have the first London best that we do. And
he had that rifle built in 1913, 10 years after the Boer War. And he worked under Lord Kirchner, who oversaw the British forces in South Africa. That was after he had been in Egypt and dealing with the problems in Sudan. And so anyway, the rifle you built for me, which is a classic, was the first rifle in 100 years. And I think your first London best you built.
Yeah, the first one in 100 years since Mauser and Rigby had worked together again. So we literally
After
just got the...
Rigby came back to London.
Yeah, back to London, got that partnership with Mauser again, that exclusive arrangement, and you had the first rifle there. And it started off as like a basic, off the shelf, ordered rifle, and then I'd phone you up and say, have you thought about this? And have you thought about this? And then next minute, Joshua Spies is doing all these drawings, which were then deep steel carved.
My good friend Joshua Spies out of South Dakota did the artwork of the Big Five, which ended up being engraved on the underplate there. And then we had other things and the mounts and the scope and all that. It's a beautiful rifle.
Yeah.
And deadly accurate, as you proved with that buffalo, which you shot with open sights.
Yeah.
You took the scope off on the sticks. I think it was about 75 yards, and wham, that thing went down.
Yeah.
Shoot again? I said, you don't have to.
No, it was amazing. And to have the privilege of shooting my first buffalo with that rifle and then shooting my first elephant with the 500 rising bite, which, again, to use our inside joke, I also shamed you into apparently when I reached out to Merle at the SCI the following year and I said, Merle, you should have one of these new rising bites. I had fresh air. I didn't even have a gun. I had nothing. It's like, yeah, we're going to start making these rising bites. I had the concept. We're going to make these rising bites. You should have one. And you said, look, if there was some way to link it to the 416, maybe, but it's not for me. So I went away, I contacted our historian, I said, how many guns did Wall Sampson have, and did he ever have a rising bite? Hour later, I get an email saying, I think he had 2, and I show Merle, and he said, send me the goddamn deposit invoice.
And the last rising bite you had made was what, 80-some years ago?
Yeah, it was 1932.
32.
Yeah.
16 years before I was born.
Well, yeah.
And tell them what you did with that in Namibia. I've shot a number of dangerous game with the gun as well.
Did, yeah. Well, we had an amazing tough hunt for mature old elephants, and we finally got it on the last day, and it was a red letter day. We got up in the morning. By this point in the safari, I've given up. We're not going to get.
You must have walked a couple hundred miles there.
We did, yeah. We walked an awful long way, and
not me, you.
Yeah, no, you were. So I was worried about you in the air conditioning back in the vehicle with all the water.
It was hot, dusty, dry, and frankly frustrating when you walk 30, 40 miles in a day.
Yeah.
And don't see anything and do that for a couple of days. Yeah.
And I was there for my 30th birthday. So we were there, we celebrated it in the bush together. It was my 30th birthday.
France was with us.
France was with us, great guy. And by that point in the safari, I'd given up. Like this dream that I'd had, it wasn't going to happen.
I think it was about, 3 in the afternoon it happened?
It was, yeah.
You got into a herd and France grabbed you on the shoulder and said, that one.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a sort of whole heap of them there, and they were about 85 yards. And he said, shoot that one, with some slightly more colorful language, which we can't repeat here on the podcast. And I sort of, something took over me. I ran forwards, and it was quite a long shot. But anyway, we made a good shot. And that whole day, I mean, you remember we woke up in the morning, we were driving along, and those cow elephant charged us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, had there not been a tree about this big, I was in the back seat on the left side. We're driving along in this sand forest where the sand was like that, so the vehicle could 8-9 miles an hour at the most. And here comes this cow elephant out of nowhere trumpeting and comes straight forward. And had that tree not been there, I'm convinced she would have knocked us over. We may not be here today.
No, absolutely. And I remember,
I've never been charged by an animal shooting, and I've shot 6 buffalo, 5 or 6 elephants, 5 lions, never been charged, but I've been charged by 2 cow elephants. That was one. The other one was in Zambia, and out of nowhere, this cow comes after us, and I had a tracker in that situation. I was in the left seat of the front cab, and the cow is coming, and we're in this cotton mud, and again can't go fast. This guy's trying to climb through their front window to get in with me, and faster. But they can be very, very dangerous.
Yeah,
and
extremely.
unfortunately, I know a couple of people that have been killed over there by elephants.
which is which is horrible, and I'm a little ashamed to admit, like I was sat there in the vehicle and was like, come on, let's get out of here, and this thing's coming, and there's some colorful language from you, Merle, understandably so. And I remember looking at this cow as she came in. I thought, she's going to hit us, and I'm on the.
She would have.
Yeah, and I thought, what do I do? It's like a cartoon, so I just wound up the window and just sort of braced for impact. I mean, it's going to make zero difference. I just wound up the window, hoping that I'm not going to feel anything.
And if you remember, about 3 minutes before that, we had pulled in. Here's this big male lion that had been laying on the sand and just got up and casually walked away. And perhaps that's what got this elephant angry, because it wasn't but 2 minutes after that.
No.
She came out of the same direction the lion had been. And like I said, had it been not for that tree, I don't know we'd be here today.
Yeah.
Because that easily would have rolled.
No, it was an amazing day, seeing that fully grown, mature lion. It's just a proper red letter day. And then we got that bull down at 3 o'clock on the last day, and I must share the story, which Paul Roberts, I talked about this before. He shot the last exported black rhino from Kenya in the 70s, and it was a problem animal. It killed someone a few days before, and he was with Luke Samaras, and they were asked to go and
very nasty,
extremely nasty, and he was asked to go and hunt this creature, which was extremely dangerous. And they get the bull down, and Paul waits there in the baking Kenyan sun, and they go back to get the vehicle, which is miles away, and I think several hours later they turn up, and all there is to drink in there is a bottle of champagne, which is now like jacuzzi temperature, and a styrofoam cup. And Paul's got a picture of this moment with the bull laying there, and he's pouring the champagne out, and it's this very iconic photo of Paul's, and I always remember it, the early days of working for him. And I thought, what,
he
like
was your mentor.
My mentor, and also another very big father figure in my life, and
a wonderful man.
Very much so. And I wanted to not recreate that photo, but that experience. So I bought at the airport a bottle of Bollinger champagne for my 30th birthday, and I thought, we will not open this until we get the bull down. And we had it in the cooler box for the whole safari. And you can imagine, after 2 weeks of being in a cooler box, it was destroyed. The label, we wouldn't know what it was. It looked like it'd been under the sea for 100 years.
Imagine.
And the morning, it was either the morning or the night before we got the bull down. Do you remember there's that big lady working in the camp? She's very sweet, and she came to me. I won't try and recreate her wonderful accent, but she said, "Why do you have this champagne?" And I said, well, I'm telling her the Paul Robbins story, and she said, this is bad mazenga, I think was the word, bad magic. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do this.
Is a term the natives use for bad magic.
Absolutely. So anyway, I didn't think more of this. We shoot that bull. We tears and all the amazing emotions that go with it, and we eventually bring the vehicle up, and I go to the cool box, and there's no champagne in there. Anyway, anyone who's hunted one of these amazing animals will know that there's a lot of singing, and we got back to the camp, and all of the camp staff were singing and dancing, and we had this is an amazing experience. So in amongst all of this is this big lady there smiling at me, holding the bottle of champagne, and she'd taken it out of the cooler box that morning, and she said, "See, I told you. I took it out, and you got lucky." So
let's talk about the other rifle we had there. Remember, I shot the sable with.
Yes, yeah. The
275 you guys made for me.
Yeah, we did, in the style of Jim Corbett's 275, which is just over here in the cabinets. And
the most important thing was, one, you had a tiger engraved on it, symbolic of Corbett, and two,
just behind me here in this statue,
and 275. And in that rifle, there's a little oval silver plate in there, and I think the inscription is something to the effect of, to Merle Sampson, in honor of our friendship by all your friends at Rigby, and the date underneath. So that's a classic, and that brings around the story of the first 275, which I bought back when Rigby was in the U.S. They made a replica of Queen Elizabeth's rifle, and the serial number was identical, but this copy, if you will, it had Q in front to signify Queen Elizabeth, and the actual number, the case and everything was the same. And I had hunted at Balmoral for roe deer the previous year with a friend of mine. And when that came up for auction that night, I said, you know what, if the price is right, I'm going to buy that. I've got it to this day. I've never shot it. And the following year I met you. I had met Paul Roberts that night at SCI, I believe it was in Vegas, when we got the rifle. And that basically was the beginning of our friendship.
No, it was. And it's an interesting story, that one, Marc, because
we won't go into that.
Well, I think we probably can. So the rifle was
tell it then.
Well, the rifle was built by the American Rigby company, just
Right.
in that transitional period, and it raised, if it makes
$40,000
for conservation projects around the world, which is amazing. That's one of the biggest.
Specifically lion, yes.
Yeah, specifically lion. So I then, at that same convention, I get offered the role of CEO of Rigby's, and by Michael Luca from Blaser Group, which was.
And you didn't have an office yet.
We didn't have an office, and I go back, and then I moved into Paul's old office, and that's a story for another day on the podcast. But it was like just a couple of months in there, and I'll never forget hearing the letterbox go, and I go there, and on the doormat is a couple of bills. You were literally just re-established the company in London.
It was pretty much you yourself.
Yeah, and there's one there which says Buckingham Palace on it, and I thought, my God, with the royal warrant, we've not even made a gun yet. We're back anyway. So in my naivety, go and sit down, and I open it up, and it was a rather stern letter from the palace saying that an American gentleman had reached out and I think wanted to come for tea at the palace at Balmoral and to see the original rifle, and and it was permission.
Her original rifle was at Balmoral at that time.
Yeah, and the late Majesty
for the kids to use, as she called it.
Correct. Yeah, she was seeking to know if permission was asked before Rigby's had made this rifle, and of course this is frankly nothing to do with me. We're now in London, so I wrote a groveling letter back. I'm so sorry, and explained the situation, and it was all absolutely fine because it was within the spirit of conservation and something I know that the royal family have been big supporters of over the years. But I remember phoning the shareholders in Germany at Blaser Group, and they thought it was a joke. And I said, no, this is quite a serious matter. So Merle's been getting me in trouble and all sorts
with the Queen.
With the Queen, her late Majesty, bless her. It's been an amazing journey, and we've hunted together in the UK, and
kind of a funny come around. I was hunting with Monty, your head of operations, and Monty was a decorated British war hero and severely injured, and he had been at Buckingham Palace at the request of the Duke and the Queen on some veterans affairs, and I don't think that story ever came about, but he told me an interesting story about how he was serving the Queen her afternoon cocktail, and it didn't quite suit her fancy, so he had to refresh it for her.
Yeah, no, bless him. We've just done a podcast with Monty. He's lived a pretty extraordinary life.
Enjoyed a very good time down in France at the boar hunt that Paul Roberts did just a little over a month ago.
No, but
he's a good man, but just and very modest.
Yeah,
and
very
we
much.
Talked at times about, he had to move around whatever because he was getting arthritic because of these injuries. He's lucky to be here. I think he was injured in Iraq, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
but you've got an excellent man in him.
No, thank you so much, Merle. He's a great guy and a great friend, and I'm going to embarrass him now because of some of those injuries. I think he was suffering a bit, and he was wearing some sort of electrical wire, which I don't know helps stimulate the muscle.
Right, yes.
And I think I heard my doorbell ring, and it was Monty, and I don't think he realized anyone was there. He'd rung it a couple of times, and as I opened the door, he's got his trousers down by his ankles. I'm going to do something with this wire, and he's sort of shocked that anyone's at my house. So, what does a great friend do? I got my camera out, and I took this pic as a bang, gotcha. But bless him, I'm sure he'll be listening to this.
Yeah, he had that, and his elbow was reattached after a number of surgeries and couldn't bend it. So, but he won't talk about it unless something brings it up, and then he's quite reticent to go into all the details.
Yeah, no, he's an extraordinary guy.
Veterans are.
Yeah, well, as I've said this before on the podcast, we're big believers in supporting, ex-military personnel at Rigby's. The amount of training and, frankly, financial resources that go into them. It seems crazy to me that the governments of the world just let these guys just leave and not try and use them in other other parts of society, to benefit wider society. And we're lucky to have, we've got Dave from the Aussie Army, we've got John, Royal Marine, and we've got Monty.
Yeah, you've got a regular United Nations among your craftspeople there.
Sure do.
Your engravers from Finland and stock makers from this country, and another engraver, Jeffrey from Belgium?
So he's from France.
France,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And he speaks very highly of you. All your staff do. So
No, that's kind of.
as you've done an incredible job with Rigby, and I think the last gun probably won't be my last. I'm not sure what the next will be. Was that 375 you had made custom? Maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, with the sort of animals of Cameroon, because I know you'd hunted Cameroon, and
Right.
I think you, I think you described it as hotter than Satan's armpit or something when we turned up in Uganda.
I've done the jungle there for bongo and other animals, and then the savannah for Lord Derby eland, Corrigan, western roan, bushbuck, etc. But in the savannah, I went over there healthy, and the daytime temperatures were 125, and I'm not kidding. At night, it cooled off to about 95, and I had a cottage with air conditioning, and they'd like to cool it off at 10 o'clock, turn it off. And I said, I will pay for the diesel fuel to run that generator because I can't sleep.
Yeah.
It would be at 75 when the air is on. They shut it off. Within an hour, it's back up to 95, 100. And long story short, I got back home and I'm still drinking water, just copious amounts. And I go to the doctor to get checked up. They said, you got diabetes. I think that extreme heat over there triggered it, because I was fine before I went.
I didn't know that.
And so the message to all hunters when you get into these extreme environments is take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Whether it's your boots, whether it's hydration or whatever. So frankly, I managed to get it under control, and my A1C is down around 5.4 today, which is non-diabetic, but having once been diagnosed as diabetic, the FAA from a pilot standpoint is magnifying glass to make sure everything is front and center. But yeah, it was quite an experience. So
Yeah.
where's our next journey?
You are quite, and we're going to have you over for
The 250th.
the 250th,
Yeah.
and you'll, as a recipient of the Rigby Tweed here, you'll be one of the
isn't that
VIPs
beautiful?
at the VIP suppers, and
My Rigby 250
Rigby
button here.
Yeah, absolutely, one of our great ambassadors for the company. And
Well, you and Monty and I were there last year, scouting out the Victory and the other things, and that ship is phenomenal. It's 240 years old, something like that.
yeah,
Lord
so it
Nelson,
was ordered in 1758.
1750.
We started laying it down and building it. Yeah.
Well, that's going to be a spectacular time, and I understand you've got 10 requests for every seat you had, and you're already full up for.
Yeah, I think I should probably started selling tickets. We made more money than selling guns.
That's
But
all right. Well,
we've got some exciting things lined up there, Mel. So yeah, maybe there's one more rifle we can shame you into.
well, we can talk about that there, and here it is. We're almost through January, and that's coming up in mid-May. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
just a
that
few
far
weeks
off.
away. I know Monty's listening to this at home, probably at 3 in the morning because he doesn't sleep anymore.
Well, I
Trying to
just got
organize
a
this
text
thing.
from him about an hour ago, said that he got a seat. So you and I and he are going to do the boar hunt
Yeah,
in France
absolutely.
next year with
Right.
Paul.
Fantastic.
And God willing, Paul will be there and be healthy, because he's 83, 84?
84 now, yeah.
84, yeah.
Well, yeah.
He's an incredible guy.
Absolutely. Merle, thank you so much for sitting with me today. We're going to have to get back and
I enjoyed it.
sell some more guns here, and
All right.
thank you so much. God bless
Best
you.
of luck, Marc.
Cheers, Merle.
Safe travels. Thanks.
Thanks.